My name's Sasha Pete, and I'm joined by a legend. This man was a hard man in Australia, and he went abroad and he applied his skill there. None other than the great Doug Hodgson. Welcome, Doug, to this conversation.
Thanks, Sash, mate. Great to be part of your journey. You know, you've done a few boys now, obviously. Obviously, getting around the tracks. Obviously, more clubs than Greggy Norman. You've a podcast number. What are we up to now?
Yeah, so sounds like we're going to have a laugh today.
Well, I hope you don't mind, Sash, because I've just finished work and I'm going to have a couple of beers if the boys don't. Professionals, youngsters, don't try this at home.
Go for it, mate. Go for it. Okay, so tell us, Dougie, how did you fall in love with our great game?
A funny one, Sash. So it's not funny, obviously. Mum and Dad being an English, Mum and Dad came over in, let's just say 1965. Grew up in Frankston North, Pines Estate. Great part of community, you know, and we'll touch on it later on, Sash, I suppose, with the community is so different now, especially with the structure of the way it used to be. You know, Frankston Pines Soccer Club. Where I started, I was there at 4 years old. My father ended up being a life member there. He ended up being the president of Frankston Pines Soccer Club for 15 years. Mum was treasurer. Most of my friends that I still am fortunate enough to have mates for 50 odd years. We grew up in the Pines. We played soccer together. We played Nathan Burke. And do apologise, Sash, if I name drop through this. It's just people that I know and we've gone through. Berkey, great St Kilda football. Brendan Moore, played for Essendon. So they were soccer, and then you had footy, school, and cricket came in between. So you got Pines Footy Club, Pines Soccer Club, and between the two of them, we generated with the cricket. So, which we'll talk about later on. My dad thought I was a better cricketer than I was a soccer player. So, hindsight, I made 100 when I was 12, made 88, 71, and made some great friends and still great friendships now. You know, friendship to me means a lot. But the game, 4 years old, I suppose, I look back and, you know, as we get a bit older, Sash, the old brains are not as good as, I've had a few too many soccer balls, you know. I've had 3 operations in the Gregory Peck. So obviously the brain's not as sharp as it used to be. And especially from them centre forwards elbowing me, and I think I've got cuts here and here and under here and here from the boys. But the game was there. Like, it was just, I suppose, part of the community. And you'll probably go back to the old National League days before my time, you know, the Gary Coles, and prior to Gary Coles, the old National League, you know. It was just, and I suppose the groups that followed the clubs, you know, you can talk like, you know, the ethnics, obviously, the Greeks, and then you got the Italians, and then you got the Macedonians, and they followed, and that was a community. Mm-hmm. That is Pines, okay, English, Scots, you know, they were, you know, Mum and Dad were from Sunderland North East, which enabled me to have dual passport. So it allowed me to, you know, go abroad eventually in the first 10. But Frankston Pines is where it all started, mate. And little do people probably know that I was a centre forward as a striker. Played my juniors at Pines and basically represented Victoria under 13s, 14s and 15. Me and Paul Trimboli. The centre forward, you talk about Stabber, Andrew Marth. Now that boy would have made it in England. Aggressive, he had all the bells and whistles, Stabber. Great player. Then you've got Mark Telegic, Steve Brimmer. You know, I'll miss people as we talk about it, but there's that generation, Colin Cooper, you know, Stan Thodist. You know, they all played for Australia under 16s. So George Gillespie, another one. To be Alan from Morwell, Alan Alexander was our coach. You know, the Tony Dunkleys were around then. So, you know, the Tim Woods, team managers. So 13s, 14s and 15s. And it's funny, I mean, we won't touch too much in the coaching area. Obviously, that's later on in life. But you learn now part of growing and development in kids. I call them, you know, giraffes or Bambi on ice. You know, and I tried for the Victorian teams under 12s for the 13s. I didn't make it, of course. I tried, but I banged in goals for fun as a kid, and I scored and scored and scored. Yeah, so 13s, 14s and 15s, we at the Frankston Pines, we went undefeated for 3 years in a row as a junior. So I suppose, did I fall in love with the game, or did the game fall in love with me? Or was it just you're coming down to the soccer club and do as you're told? Because Mum and Dad's down there probably having a short one of these. Yeah. I'm down there doing our training, and that's what it was. Jimmy Campbell and Brian Jackson. These are people, when you talk about who's escalated in your life and who's been part of your life career, you can't remember who taught you what. Things as you get older, you look back, we'll get on some stories as we go about that, but they must have all touched. Because they must have, little Johnny's dad coaching, he must have taught me something. You know what I mean? So little Johnny's dad that's out there, he's doing something towards and helping a kid or a girl or whatever he's coaching, and that it's and that's where it starts.
Brilliant. It like all good centre half start off as strikers. Well done. And when did you gravitate? Because like when I remember you, I remember you just as this hard centre half. So how did you transform? Because you said 13s, 14s, and 15s, right? It's around that time whereby we could have lost you to football. You had a serious
car accident. I was told I'd never play soccer again.
Yep.
At the age of 15. There were 7 of us in a car going to a party. Obviously, we weren't drinking. The driver wasn't drinking. We got hit at 110 Ks. He went straight through a stop sign. The police say, because there were so many of us, we were young, 15, 16 years old, obviously going to make, a party, not to drink or anything else like that, but to a party. And because there were so many of us in the car, it was a Datsun 120Y, Sasha, and the car actually split in half.
Wow.
My mate, Dean Cavan, he died. But when I say he died, he had open heart surgery, spleen removed, fractured pelvis. They saved him, died twice on the table. Another big mate of mine, Gordo, Big Gordon Henry, played soccer, left back at Frankston Pines as a kid with me, and ended up playing 500 games for Pines Footy Club, legend of the club. His 2 boys play Pines. I sponsor the Pines Footy Club down there. So trying to give back to the community in the area that I grew up. But another mate, the driver broke her back. My other mate, we called him Flip. Tommy had 52 stitches in his head. He had a big scar up there. I had a broken jaw, 4 fractured teeth, 3 fractured ribs, and severe whiplash. I wore a neck brace for 2.5 years. And I'll be honest with you, Sash, and we'll probably touch on it later on. It was you don't know that at your time, how it affects you. I played tennis, I played cricket, and I played soccer. That was taken away from me at the age of 15 now. I think it was about 19 when I got back, 18, 19, I got back to soccer. No, I think it was 19. 4 years, 3 to 4 years I was out of it.
Wow.
And it was probably not the martial, it was more the mental toughness of, I can turn off, even to now, mate, I can turn off in pain. I'm in pain every day. That's another subject which we'll discuss as we go through the journey of my career. But that was more mental focus of basically pushing your body and yourself to the limit. And, us professional players and boys that have been out there and they play at that highest level, the elites, you talk about your Bosses or Carvid or your Birchies or anyone else, we're adrenaline junkies. That's what we are. We are. So I got back to playing at Pines. It was a game one day, and it was Sullivan and Ernie Merrick. And what it was, they needed a sweeper. And I said, I was coming back. Obviously, I said, I'll play that. No drama at all. So I ended up playing up front, and I basically then played at this particular game at the back. And I used to basically wait till the goalkeeper threw the ball out to the right back, and I'll just line him up. And I'd go, right, I'm having that ball, and if you're in the way, I'm taking you with it. So, and it's funny because Trivers and I have known each other since we were young, and I know his sister quite well and the family quite well. And it was an article in The Age when I got back playing Sasha. I haven't seen Doug for years, but apparently he's this big, tough centre half going around kicking everyone. Obviously, and it was all the physicality. Was I physical? No, I was a striker. Let's be fair. There's not many strikers that are physical, are they, in Northern today? So it was Ernie and obviously Sullivan, and I ended up playing and going back as a centre half. Now, I look back at that as a coach. Some players are better off having the back to goal. Some players are better off with vision in front. And you'll identify that as a coach and seeing, visually which players and how they react in certain ways. So obviously I was better at attacking the ball than receiving the ball. So I ended up becoming a centre-half, played against Melbourne, Croatia at Olympic Park. I think that was when the days, we're talking, there was 18,000 there for Frankston Pines, me and John Cummings. There was sticks. Tommy Cummings was down the right hand, trying to catch Tommy Cummings down the right hand side. Good luck with that as an 19-year-old. And from there, I became a centre half and at Pines, and obviously went to Dufton. Had a year at Dufton, and we won one game a season. And the old mate Ange Kazula, Shaggy, he's a character. He's a great lad, old Shaggy. So we won. We looked like we won the FA Cup. The last game of the season we won. And I think we drank for about 4 days straight. It was typical English lads, Scottish lads at Dufton, and the McMenamies. Danny McMenemy was there. He's the president there now. Him and I played. We've been doing some coaching together in the NPL system with the juniors. So from Dufton, and it escalated very quickly. Going back at 13 years old, I did have trials at Sunderland and Watford. Mum and Dad went for a holiday in England, and I went and had trials with Gordon Taylor. Had a letter of bits and pieces, just looking, see where it goes. So it's just funny how life turns. You go from a striker, scoring goals for fun. Tony Dorigo, Aston Villa, England, he broke my leg. At 13-year-old, we played against Ascot Park in Adelaide. So I had a broken leg when I was 13 or 12. Was I 12? I was young anyway. And anyway, it's quite funny because when I ended up going to England, I ran into him on doing a coaching badge. And there he was. I said, "Hey, mate," when I spoke to him, I said, "You would remember me. Do you remember breaking some kid's leg when you were younger?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Ascot Park, because Frankston Pines used to play against Ascot Park Primary School. They would fly to Adelaide, the old TAA, and then they'd fly to us or would bus it. And that was the relationships between. And as with Tony Dorigo, and look what he went and, what a career that man had. So that's where I ended up at Dufton. And from Dufton, obviously, Heidelberg. So great people along the journey at Dufton, mate. Some really good characters, some great people. Jimmy Train was there, the McMenamies. Stewie, Stan Webster's, the Webster family's been there. I suppose you talk about the southeast, from people over, over Sunshine area, and then you've got your Heidelberg's area, and you've got your, Preston's area, your Bundoora area. But southeast, it was good fun times, mate. Even though we only won one game, and Brian McNichol, obviously Brian's a good mate of mine. We ended up going to Heidelberg together. And he always makes the mickey out of me about the British Soccer Weekly. He won it, I got runners up. And I said, "Yeah, but mate, I was only allowed to get one vote." And he said, "Yeah," but he actually said to me last week, because he's lived with us for 2 occasions. Well, his house was getting built, he's moved in with the family. And he goes, "Yeah, but I had all the players I had to play with, like your Whiteys and your Smudges and all the good, your Del Rockers." He says, "I had to get good votes." So fair call. So we bounce off each. There's a bit of banter goes on there, Sash. And that was the British Soccer Weekly. So runners up in the British Soccer Weekly, and then away I went to Gary Cole, Heidelberg.
Yeah, was the big jumping from the? Did you notice a big jump from the state league level to go for Heidelberg?
It was more of a challenge. Like, my life has been a challenge. And I probably challenged myself. Everything is challenge. Every day I get out of bed is a challenge, obviously physically. How you challenge, how you take that. And I'll never forget those, Sash, with Coley. Our first game was Melbourne, Croatia, Sydney, Croatia. Ozzy was in goals. There's a few other bits and pieces. And Coley said, "Listen, you're starting." We were flying to Sydney. It was hot as anything. There was, you look back at the team then, Sash. We're talking about Jeff Oliver. That's right. I'm trying to grow this. Mate, this just took me all of COVID. I can't tell you what the bed is because I can't say it'll be too filtered. Right? This just took me all COVID to get this. I've got holes here, everything else. So J.O., that's what we call him, Chuck Norris. old J.O., what a goalkeeper that man was. So, and still is. Anyway, it was him, Sean Murphy. Now, my first day coaching at Sheffield United, I took Sean Murphy in the first session. Smurf, he actually lived with us. So it was Sean Murphy, Troy Cranny, and Terry Pilatus stayed with me in my house in Frankston the first year. So, and then was Kevin Muscat. So there's your, and then you got Alan Scott. So your back line's Alan Scott, Murph, Hodgson, and Muscat, and Bratton. And you've got Stubbins, Gillette, and then you've got George played for Australia as well. And then you've got Shaggy, and you've got Ali Dick. We're a young team, though. So, and we went the first game, Boswell was in goals. Anyway, we rammed it down the neck 3-1. So it was a quite great, it was a good game. And I remember hopping on the plane and Coley's gone, by the way, you're marking such and such. And I said, this is on the plane. I said, who's he? And I put my hand up, so I said something for myself, even to this day. My first game in England was Sheffield Wednesday versus Sheffield United. And Wally Downs says, by the way, Doug, he says, look, mate, you're going on a friendly game, have a Sheffield Cup. He says, yeah. I said, he said, when you go on, he said, Mark number Bright. He said, Mark Bright, number one. I said, who's he? And this is a true story. He's looked at me. Wally Downs is in Jamaica now. He's been Wimbledon's manager, Reading's manager. He's been down south. And he looked at me and he's gone, you're not taking the piss, are you? I said, no. He said, it's England captain. At the start, I went, who's he? He went, the dark lad out there at the back. I said, all right, so I'm going to go kick him. All right, done. No drama at all. So, me and names, and my wife, obviously, she worked for Mizuno and Nike through the marketing in England. And I'd actually say to her, who's he play for, who's this, and you know. And you learn names, and you know, mine goes in here. If it's got to connect, it'll stay in here. But if I can go, it can keep going. I'll send it up. As you know, mate, we're not the brightest at times. So it was, Coley said to me, he said, you're marking him. He said, you know who he is. I said, why is that, Gaz? He said, he's big, daft and ugly, just like you. And that was me wrong nationally. Could you tell the difference? It was hard. It was faster. Analysing the game and look back now. And I'll talk about the game in general. You know, you talk about, obviously, NSL. You talk about second division in England. You talk about first division in England. You talk about the Premier League in England. You know, played against Arsenal. Mark Deanwright, Burkamp, Adams, Stephen. You know, that was the who's who of the, you know, the 80s and the 90s. You know what I mean? And what you find was they're more intelligent and they're a bit smarter. So if you go basically, let's go Division 2, simple runs. Division 1, I make a bit more pulling you out to bring you in. Premier League, pull you out, in, creating the yard to get across you, pick you off. That's part of being a defender. That you learn the trade, the tricks of your trade pretty quick, which is body shape and understanding the game. So, and that's where the intelligence of the game in England, for me, and I'll say this on record, mate, people can down me. I think first division in England are one of the toughest leagues in the world, physically. It's changed now, as we know, mate. The game has changed back to where we were. But so does the game change as you go? Yeah. You know, the first game, we were out in King's Cross after the game. 3-1 win, mate. Yeah, we're in King's Cross. That's another story. And Gary Cole sat us down on the Monday and said, right, boys, we got in at 4 o'clock in the morning, as you do. Not like these days that have water. We were 3 quarts tanked in the middle of King's Cross in Sydney, punching on and drinking, and girls were involved and everything else. Obviously the single bloke, of course. Married ones, they were tucked up in bed, Sasha. So the single boys were out, as they were, and we had some good times and good laughs. So they were good trips.
It's an interesting story how you actually got over to Sheffield, but you sort of you skipped along, ended up playing. They ended up touring here. So walk us through that sort of machination of how you ended up getting across to England.
I'll give you the filtered, semi-filtered story. Got back playing got to Heidelberg. Sunshine, George Cross. Muskie was there. Cole Gilder. That's another story of Gilder when I was playing against Arsenal at Highbury. Came on. Well, I'll go back to that later on with Gills as well. I won't because I'll forget it. So Red Highbury came on the last 25 against Arsenal, 1-0. We were down and Howard Kendall, bless his soul, the Everton legend, said, Dougie, can you play up front? I said, Gaffer, get me on, I'll score your hat-trick. Get me on there. He said, right, strip yourself down. I pulled myself down. I'm in Highbury. Right, Highbury, one of the beautiful stadiums you'll ever see, Sasha. Absolutely. The groundsman won. He won groundsman of the year for 3-4 years in a row. My wife, believe it or not, had a crush on Tony Adams all those years ago. No wonder she liked my nose and me, two rough nuts. Anyway, turn around, we're playing, coming on for Sheffield United is Dougie Hodgson. And I find out about this afterwards. Cole Gilder, who I played with at Sunshine, George Cross and Frankston Pines, he's in the crowd. He said, that's Dougie. He's coming on. He's looked over. Anyway, we've gone up there and scored, one all. Howard Kendall's gone, sit down. I said, okay, get up, go down, up, down, up, down. He said, well, what do you want? He said, no, let's go, let's lock shop. The last 20 minutes, I'll throw in the kitchen sink and everything else. I've got great footage of it. And done well, held my own. And then I get off the game, I finish, I get this. Is Dougie Hodgson here, please? And it Arsenal, they like to sell those. They're all nicely dressed, hats, they're well-to-do. I like us Pines people, moccasins and flip-flops and all the rest of it, So I've gone, I haven't done nothing wrong in England, can't be in trouble. I'm thinking, I do have family in London. Could it be family? Anyway, I've opened the door and here's Gilds, Cole Gilder. Dougie, Gilds! I've got a towel wrapped around me. I head out the room and said, do me a favour, mate, can you get him up in the, had his cousin with him, said, get him up in the players' lounge for me, please. I'll be up in a minute. There we were, having a pint of dinner. He was an Arsenal supporter. And I found out about this later. Stevie Keenan, the Scottish Stevie Keenan, he tells the story. He said he heard about what happened. He said, that was super. So there was Cole Gilder, and I'll be honest, I'm 6'3", 6'2.5". Adams is probably over me by about that. Bowler was about that. Seaman, they were big units, very big units. And I've gone up there, getting a beer in first pint. There's Gilds, first pint, talking to Tony Adams. Old Seaman, he's giving it. How good's this? He was happy as big as manure. So he came back, I'll go back a bit, and Kenny Wagstaff was looking for a centre half. And I said to Heidelberg, I said, can I go on loan? So me and Muskie, and there was the bricklayer, and Kenny Wagstaff, who I do know now, and I still keep in contact with Ken. He was a funny man. He's a Hull City legend. He scored goals for Randy. I think he 40,000. He moved from Mansfield to Hull back in the 60s. I remember seeing him bringing a ball down. He would have been 50-odd on the chest on the 18-yard box, playing in the old league when I was over there. He stuck in the top pigeon. Still have it. So anyway, we used to drive all the way. So we ended up playing Sunshine George Cross. So we used to drive on a Friday, 45 minutes training. And I remember I live in Frankston, the Sunshine. Heidelberg, I was working as a tree lobber. When I was Victorian, when I made the Victorian senior squad. There's Warratifi in their suits. You've got trimmers in their suits. They're accountants and all that. I've got my old ripped shirt, chainsaw jacket on, walk in. They just looked at me and gone, day at the office, Daddy wasn't mate. They're all suited up. So we've gone into George Cross. And Ken Wagstaff used to play bingo. And he used to get us in. I said, Waggy, do I have to come? He said, mate, you're only in 45. Bingo starts at 7:15. Be here. Said 6:30 start, 15:15. He said, I'm in the bingo. So 7:15, you'd walk off straight into bingo. We would finish training. So I ended up doing quite well there. And Ken Wagstaff said, listen, he said, I'm going to take you back to Hull City. Try to have a trial. I'll be honest with you, Sasha, at a stage in my career, I was playing at Heidelberg. The first year of my career at Heidelberg, I won player best and fairest. It was, with the sort of calibre of players we had, it was an honour. The trophy that's in the loft, it's still in the loft as well with the rest of the stuff. And George Cross went over there, and I thought my back was playing up. was a bit sore. I was going to give the game away. And then I thought, I'm going to go and have another. Let's keep going. I remember my mum saying, you've got to A-League, we'll call it, or National League. You've done well, son, you know what I mean? Your neck and back, your body, maybe that's where you've got to go. So rolled the sleeves up and I went the whole. And that left a bitter taste in my mouth. It really did, mate. Heidelberg, they burnt me, as I'd call it. Peter Sackless was the president. And don't get me wrong, he was doing what he was probably doing what's right for the club as a business, you know what I mean? Got me for nothing. I'm from Dufton, first year. They put a whole city wanted me. Scored against Derby in the reserve game. And I thought, you beauty, they offered me a 2-year deal, 450 quid a week. And rang Heidelberg, and they've turned around and gone 140,000 on my head. Now, to come from where I'd came, Sash, to get back on the game, to get back going again, it left a sour taste in my mouth. And I came home. It's quite funny or ironic because parts of me after 7-8 weeks being away was missing home. So there's a bit of me, and I will say this honestly, probably 10% going, you beauty. But realistically, the 90% was saying, mate, I'm staying. I'm here. I've got a deal. So you look back, and that's 2 years of my career that would have took me maybe to better earlier. Who knows what I would say. That was pretty, I was going to take him to court. The Bosman is the ruling, as we know, Sasha. It could have been called the Hodgson. Brendan Swab, the solicitor. He did save me. It's restraint of trade. I needed 10 grand. And that's at that stage, unless I was going to rob a bank, I didn't have 10K. So I sucked it up and I got on with it and basically played again. And then another opportunity came. I was still doing security. And then I stopped doing security through, I used to do a bit of debt collecting. And when a debt collecting job went wrong, blah, 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 a few little incidents in the nightclubs. And the policeman wanted to talk to me. So probably I had an opportunity to go to WA. And I just thought, Sash, that'll be a good time to leave Victoria. Thought, you know what? Not bad. And it was quite funny, Sash. When I left Victoria, the police did knock on the door at Mum's, and Mum said, he doesn't live here, he lives in WA. So it was only would have been for, not that, I reckon I would have got off because I was self-defense. It would have been only for fighting. So, and I always wondered this. I'd like to know, Paul Donnelly, Skip, I believe he set it up. But I don't really know, because if he does, I owe him a big thank you. But I don't know if it was him that set it up or who did. And so anyone listens to this podcast and know about me going from Heidelberg on loan again to Dinella Serbia, was the club, please tell me. I owe someone a thank you. So I think it was Paul Donnell. I'm pretty sure it was. So I've gone to Heidelberg. Listen, you've stuffed me up here. I want to go over there. So I ended up going to Dinella Serbia. Done quite well playing centre midfield, so centre half. And as you know, you talk about levels, a different thing. You go from centre half to centre midfield. Let's be fair, mate. I'm not at that age of my career. I wasn't a midfielder. But the level was down a little bit. So we dealt with it. I was a plasterer. I said to them, listen, I'll be honest with you guys. I said, you're not getting much out of me, because I was actually plastering walls, like doing the labouring. I've always been a labourer. So I was working pretty hard, 10-hour Sash. So anyway, the captain goes, mate, I'll take you. Come work for me. Can you paint? Yeah, no worries. So Nicky Dyer, still in contact with him now from Perth, legend of a man. Dedication at that level. The coach, we used to take to the coach to the strippers on a Friday afternoon. I drove. I never drank. I was pretty dedicated. I never drank prior games and bits and pieces. I was always dedicated. And I said, I'll drive. So the coach was with us. The captain was with us. We were playing the next day. It's their NPL, left way over there. So I'm doing a rolling job one day. I says, is this water base? And Nicky got me a beauty, Londoner. And he says, of course it is, boy. So I'm painting away and I've got paint everywhere. No, it wasn't water base. I had the scrubbing brush. I'm scrubbing my face. Mate, I had blisters on the side of my head. I'm covered in shit everywhere. And he's got the tray and he's laughing his head off. So I ended up doing really well. I was in with the, you have your votes. I was up there with the best of them up there. I was fortunate enough to play for Victoria here, senior level, with the Dukes. It was, we played against JF United, I think it was, from Malaysia. JF from there. So that was one as a senior player. And then basically what happened with Sheffield United was touring. They just got relegated. And I went, you know what? This is my chance. So I went, you know what? We were training 2 days a week. It was, it was semi-pro. So I turned it up and went 2 days. The other 2 days I trained on my own. Started pounding the footpaths, running, fitness, give myself, well, you know what? This is a good chance. So the back line then was Stan Lazaridis. So I got picked to play for Western Australia at the Wacker on Friday the 13th in 1993. 93, yeah, it would have been 93. Lazar, Smurf and me were the defenders. And I ended up playing against them. We got beaten 2-1. And I remember a man called Gary Williams, Bongo, who is a very, very dear friend of mine. He was my MC at my wedding. He used to do West Ham's academies and all the Southampton stuff at Blacktown, being very heavily involved with players transferring, the Muskets, the Vieds, the different people in the game. Because we were probably the first 10, I suppose, that first went to England. So played against them, and they came straight over the top of the head like that. He said, "Here's my card." He said, "How much is on your head?" I knew how much was on my head. He said 140 grand. So what happened was my mum and dad were living in Newcastle. They flew into Western Australia because it was Mother's Day weekend to see me. They flew in and I flew out. So Sheffield United said, "Right, come with us." They played Adelaide. And obviously Carl Viet must have done very well, mate. Carl, and I'll talk about Carl now. Best game I ever seen him play was that return leg against Arsenal. I didn't play that game. I played the following one because they beat Arsenal. I played the one against Villa. He destroyed Tony Adams. I watched him destroy Tony Adams. He scored the winner 1-0. What a game. Probably the best game he'd ever played. Carl Viet, good lad. He's obviously Adelaide United's manager now. I believe he's now the gaffer over there. So he done very well. So they obviously played, and then he obviously was part of the transfer. He went. So I landed in Newcastle, played for Sheffield United, and I said to Paul Rogers, said the Dodger, and I trained with him, I said, "Mate, back four, never played in the flat back four, we had 2 and a 1. I said, "Do us a favour, Dodger, give me a bit of talking here." And he looked at me. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I was hoping you were going to give me some." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I'm a midfielder." I said, "You're kidding me." I said, "Mate, here's me looking for an outlet, and I've got a midfielder next to me. I've got Carl Bradshaw, played for Norwich Wednesday United, one of them, not many to play for both Sheffield clubs. Obviously, it's not the little Man U and your Man Cities." Mate, I said, "Mate, tuck in." He goes, "I can't." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I've got nothing in the tank. The beer's gone." Mate, the boys are they just been relegated from the Premier League, so they were on a happy day, Mary. Don't get me wrong, they work, but they were having some fun, that's for sure. And I played there, and then basically done okay, and then basically played against the Olyroos under 23s. Agostino was played against Australia, and straight after that, they turned around and said, "Sash," they go, "we're going to offer you a contract." They offered me a 2-year deal, and they said, "We'll give Heidelberg, they're asking 140 grand. I said, "All right." So what people don't, in my clause, I had 30%. I had a clause in there that 30% of the transfer. So being half a decent centre-half brain businessman, put that in there with my help with my dad. And I said, I rang Sacklers. I said, "Now listen, I'll tell you when you sell me." I said, "I'll tell you." I said, "If you don't this time, I'm going to bash you." I said, "I'm coming after you." I said, "I'm coming after you, Pete." And he laughed. I said, so what they end up doing, it's funny because you look at, my kids look at the side, don't look at your encyclopedia. You don't Google yourself. You know what I mean? It's just something you don't do. Well, I don't anyway. And they got 50, they got basically £30,000 and then 20 and 20. They got the last 20 after 50 games. And there was another sell-on clause when they sold me to Oldham. There was a percentage there, but there was a player swap deal in there, Sash. So they made that player higher and me lower. And because Neil Warnock said to me, he said, I wish I'd known, son, I would have made sure you'd have been right, because I had to cover that too, which I never got. So that was it. So from Sheffield United, I hopped on a plane and from Victorian Police, and I actually had a warrant out after the arrest, and I left Australia. It was only for a fine, $775 fine. So I paid that. I took my checkbook with me out of Australia, paid that, and landed. And then we went Norway, Oslo, pre-season, and I'll never forget it because we played, and Nathan Blake, Welsh international, Blake, he said, Nate, he said, there's a tackle came in, and it's funny how managers test you. I played 3 games. I think we had 7 games in 10 days. We had a squad, so it was all fitness. It was fitness, and you're training morning and after. You pre-season in England, it's tough. It's tough. Anyone who's done it, Clarkey will talk about it. Muskie can talk about it. You go. Any professional player will tell you the same. Your Dukes will tell you. But anyway, he turned around and said, I'm not going to play tomorrow. And a few of the boys, a couple of Jacko lads, we had the crazy gang. Vinnie Jones had just left Sheffield United the year before. So Glenn Hodges, Johnny Gannon. Johnny Gannon's Man City's chief scout. Hodges been with Mark Hughes at Man City, been at Wimbledon. So Kevin Gage, Brian Gale, you're talking Wimbledon's captain, Man City's captain. So you've got some players there. So they're obviously coming through the end of their careers, and they were lads. They were some funny boys. They were real funny boys, mate. So there's just some stuff in here, and I'm smiling. I just can't talk about that went on. But he turned around and he said to me, and I'll never forget it because Dave Bassett turned around, he goes, mate, he says, you're not playing, you won't start tomorrow. He said, but be ready. So 5 to 3, just about kick off at 3 o'clock. He said, by the way, Doug, you're playing. Oh, okay, no worries at all. Bang, went in. I gave a couple of good crunching tackles in front of the dugout. And I remember Harry turned around and said, he means business. He's here. I was there dedicated. I wanted it. It's my opportunity, mate. I took it with both hands, and I wasn't going to be denied what I've been shot in the foot the last 2. So you can talk about third time lucky, and that's where I was going with it. So what he did, it was a test, because some of the boys had been out the night before, and he divided, and he got on the team coach. And I'll never forget it because I'm a character. I'm an extrovert. Colby's an introvert. I'm an extrovert. And I'd follow sheep. Not really. I'm my own man, but I like to have fun. But when it comes to sport and work, it's dedication. If we were playing on a Saturday, Tuesday night, you wouldn't have a drink. We drank back then. That was part and parcel. You go prior in my era, Sash, they used to smoke in the half time, didn't they? Imagine seeing them now. There's Archie Thompson with his spliff. He's going. So they were dedicated. So and he turned around, he went around, he said to Carl Vitt, I know what you want. He looked at me. He said, don't know about you. I looked at him and he said, you can go left, you can go right. You will go down the wrong road. It's up to you. And that was him telling me, the ball's in your court. But I was dedicated and hungry enough, mate. I've been through enough to know what I want. And I wanted to be a professional footballer. You know what I mean? I think that's every kid's dream, to become a professional footballer. If what starts the journey, where it starts from, I just think Sasha just gets hungry every setback, resilient, knockbacks, brick walls, whatever you want to say. Life's full of them, and they are hilly roads. Football, and I'll say the same, football is a hilly road. It's a very emotional hilly road. You're in as your last game, especially when you're playing in front of your crowds and, bits and pieces. You got your fans and, you think about your Millwalls. They're having a bad go at the Den. They're not going to be happy. So it was definitely emotional roller coaster being a pro. So, you look back at it and you go where you got to and whatever. 90 my first season, I smashed this, ended up having 3 operations on my bugle. So I was out for a while. And then the second season, where I went, I was on loan at Plymouth Argyle. That's where I met Neil Warnock. He tried to buy me from Sheffield United. We had some fun at Sheffield United. Dave Bassett was there, mate. And Paul Beasley in the change rooms when we got back, he said, Dukester, you've gone down the wrong road. He was a Scouser. Paul Beasley, if anyone listens, talk about a character, do his podcast, Paul Beasley. He talks about a dog on the physio bench at Sheffield United. Harry's walked in. Anyway, Billy Whitehurst is apparently, talking about Vinnie Jones and all the rest of it. Billy Whitehurst was a nutcase. And anyway, he said, Harry goes, what's going on here? He said, it's running in 3 hours. It's got a second leg in. So I've got to get some treatment. The Frenchie's got ulcers in the hamstring for the dog. He thought it's going to have a run. This is in Sheffield United. This is in the physio room. Physio room. Harry just shook his head and out he went. He did so. We had some laughs. The team bus was there, and basically I thought, well, this is a good time. I picked the team bus, had a little drive around the car park. Martin came out. So, but we had characters. You know what I mean? I jumped up on the we're going to a game after Dave got sacked. Howard Kendall came in. And I had Muskie live with me for 3 months. Dev did. He was there on trial. So obviously with them changing the guards, mate, and he ended up coming back from South Melbourne. He ended up going to Palace after that. Dev did. So we're in the team coach. We're all looking up there, and we basically, when Howard came in, we were second off bottom. And came in, so he's changed. He's brought in David White, Gordon Cowans played for Bar Villa. What a skillful player. Don Hutchison, Liverpool. Whitey, Man City, England. Patterson, who's doing a book now. So I was telling you about Mark Patterson's doing the book. Mark Beard, he's now Brighton. He's Brighton's under 21s coach. He's just moved to assistant at Stockport. Hodgie was still there. So he put 22 players on the transfer list. He did. So, and it was tough. And I had 3 months to go in this. Anyway, there was one particular day, I jumped up the team coach, had the big sunroofs.
Yep.
Go on, big fella. Go on, son. Go on. We're coming out of Sheffield, and when you're coming out of Sheffield, you're doing 2 to 3 Ks. You can't get it. Like it's all it says. It's slow. Traffic's going out. We might have been going away game. But, so I've gone up, jumped up on the roof, walked along the bus. There's another little sunroof down below. Stuck my head down. A few F-bombs. Gaffer, yeah. Any chance of an effing game today? Just wondering. He looked at you, Aussie. Get in here, you nutcase. He's just shaking his head a minute. I just want to play. He was laughing.
You play?
He played me, but I was playing anyway. It was I was playing anyway. But it was that's Sasha's resilience or not giving up. 22 players, and it's in a scrapbook somewhere in the suitcases somewhere. He sold 21. I'll never forget it because it was we played Villa after we beat Arsenal. We played Villa. Dwight York, Milosevic, Boswell was in goals. Kyle Veer was on the bench. Because the write-up was, I expect Veer would have stayed, Hodgson would have got sold. So it was the other way. So Draper, Southgate, Gareth Southgate was playing, McGrath was playing. I've got the footage, I've still got the footage on VHS, no DVDs. It's on the VHS, and I rang my mum, I'll never forget, I rang my mum and dad. I had 3 months to go on my contract. And it's, remember, you're 12,000 miles from home. People don't realise that, Clarkey was over, David Clarkson, I've seen his podcast, he played overseas, and it's a sacrifice, mate. Christmas time, I put hand on heart, mate, I'm close to my family, and you'd walk into Meadow Hall, which is the shopping centre, and all the music carols are going, and you'd go, you'd choke up. The big tough centre half, the 2 earrings and a shaved head, start crying and walk out, because it's emotional, you're missing your family, and people don't realise the sacrifice, the bosses, what he's done, you know what I mean, and other people, and not just England, I'm talking about Europe and everyone else, and even Asia, it's a tough gig. So I knew I had 3 months to go, and I said, I rang my dad, he said, all right, I said, I reckon I'll play it. I said, why? I said, Vonky was injured. He said, I reckon he's going to throw me in, me and Tuts will be at the back. I said, this will make me or break me, because I knew how we were playing during the week, and I started my first game. I'll go back, I know I'm going back a bit. My first game I came on as a centre forward. So what happens at training, I go back before I go back to Villa, was played against Bolton Wanderers in the reserves. I banged into, made one, me and Viet was up front, destroyed him, because I was at training, I was just slotting them in. And the boys go, you played up front before? I said, I used to be centre forward. So my actual debut for Sheffield United was against Luton. and I came off the bench as a centre forward. And my first touch was that far away from scoring. And there's an actual book, and I'll read it to you one day. Let's just say it talks about masturbation in the middle of the park and a red card if I'd scored. That's what it says in the book. So I said, mate, if I had scored, the referee would have sent me off. So my first touch was nearly one in the back of the nil. So that's when I first started. So I did play some games up front in England as a pro. So going back to the Villa, Sash was my mates it was wide. It was Australia. It was worldwide. It was like Sky Sport, and the game wasn't going to go ahead because it's quite funny. It's all about drinking and bits and pieces. Pat was out. Paddy, they were staying in a hotel, and the game was called off because of the snow. Now Sheffield United had underfloor heating, so the pitch was always going to be okay. So no drama. What they did, they offered free tickets to the fans that came in and shoveled the terraces. And it got to the boys. Now we stayed in a hotel that night, and I never forgot it because I used this speech for other kids. I'm in there in the morning, and I'm dry reaching in the toilet just before we go hopping on the bus to go. And Hutch said, "You're okay." Just nerves. And I used to dry reach before a game. I basically had a plate in my mouth and bits and pieces. And he said to me, he said, "Mate," he said, "you're worried about a game of football." He said, "There's kids out there worrying about where the next meal's coming from." And it's stuck in my head forever and ever. And I use that for the kids when they go, so go and enjoy it. Go and enjoy it. My dad used to say, my brother said, just think you're playing for Dufton or you're playing for Pines or Heidelberg. It's just another game. You know, it's only 30,000 people in there, full house. So it's okay. You only fight for your life. Nothing wrong with that, Sash, for your career. And your mate said, if you get a chance, give Boz one. I said, all right, I will. Anyway, turn around and I played. And I had a great game. I got to give Boz one. He went to catch the ball. I just gave him a little hip and shoulder in there. And I got the footies and I didn't know the cameras was running. And I'm running back. And as I'm running back to the zoomed in on me, and I'm laughing because I'm thinking to my mates are watching me back home in Australia. We had a great game. We got beat 1-0. That was when Dwight York done that little chip. Remember that little chip down the middle? Asked Alan Kelly, velocity, we got fouled and away. And the next day, mate, dragged into the office. And basically the boys said, I reckon they've sold you. So, but no, they hadn't sold me, offered me another 2-year deal.
Oh, beautiful.
So that was a soccer. That's how it got me over there. And there was plenty of other ups and downs. I had 32 days in hospital after my first year because of my nose. I kept hemorrhaging. My nose, I couldn't figure out why. I'm allergic to anti-inflammatories, so I can't take any anti-inflammatories at all now. A body like mine with the amount of surgeries I've had, probably need a good dose of that, I do, Sash. But another smart comment, Paul Merson, as you know, had a drug condition of rehab, what was it called, he had cocaine. So I basically I used to do a bit of commentating over in England, coming back from injury. So I was out and I said, well, I heard you've had some cocaine in your nose. He said, yeah, the difference between me and Merce is he had to pay for his and I didn't. I dragged into the captain's office and the boy said, listen, I know it's true, but you can't say it. So you didn't pay for it. I got mine for free, but they cauterised my whole nose. Basically, the old bugles, not much. That's at 5. So injuries of a footballer, Sash.
Yes. And that's the thing. People don't understand. They just obviously see the glamour aspect of the game, but there are times where when you associate your identity with the thing that you love, and then you have a serious injury that it takes away from you, a piece of you is also taken away. So, I mean, you've had your fair share of injuries as well, and you're still dealing with some of the trauma of that pain, right? So, walk us through how, in your situation, that came about, your injury to your back and neck. So was it degenerative, sudden? Explain to me what happened.
It's a funny one, Sash, because when I had my car accident as a 15-year-old, C3 and C4, when you're talking C, you're talking different levels in your neck. C3 and C4 was the one that was damaged. So, excuse me, so I ended up playing X amount of games. My career went from Sheffield United, Player of the Month, Oldham Athletic, Player of the Month, loan spells, Burnley. I was on a £250,000 move to Burnley. Smashed my cheekbone and playing against Smurf at Knox County. Sean Murphy was on the opposition. Accidental boy, backheaded, got me underneath the chin, smashed my cheekbone in 4 places. That £250,000 move, that could have been, that could have took my career another place. At Turfmoor, Burnley's a huge club. Adrian Heath was there. Obviously, he was part of the coaching staff at Sheffield United. So, Hinchy, the Everton legend. So, there's another setback. You know what I mean? So, Plymouth, I went to Plymouth, got dragged back to Plymouth because I was on loan, dragged back, and then basically I ended up from Sheffield United to Oldham. Neil Warnock, he rang me and said, listen, I'm going to come in for you. Do you want to come? Which I ended up moving from Sheffield United for £150,000 to Oldham. And then I actually went from Oldham, Andy Ritchie. He talked about, and I'll give you a little example. How's your luck? Playing an FA Cup, got another one in the nose, smashed it, broke it. That was a Saturday. They straightened it again on the Tuesday because it couldn't breathe. So they realigned it based on the Tuesday. And I was close to playing the Saturday for Oldham. Anyway, Neil Warnock was manager. And I said to the gaffer, I said, listen, he said, you're all right for Saturday? He said, mate, I want you to play. You're okay. Because I came from Sheffield United to Oldham, big fish, Sheffield United's a very big club. Obviously, when I was first signed at Oldham. Anyway, so I didn't make Saturday's game. Right, so the ball came in, I put my head where most people wouldn't put it, mate. I wore my heart on my sleeve. It didn't matter what club I played for, I gave it my all. That's the person I am. Even with work now, that's what you do. You work, you do your best you can. Coaching's the same thing. So I stuck my head in there. I didn't play that Saturday. So how's my luck? Went to training Monday. Balls came in, and now Andy Richard is a Man U legend. Balls came over, took the touch. The balls hit me straight in the bugle.
Okay.
Broke it the other way. It's broke the other way. So operation Tuesday. The following Tuesday, I'm back in for another operation. And he just said, mate, you're out for 6 weeks. And then, to be fair, that cost me a bloody lot of money, actually, because I ended up marrying my wife because I was out for 6 weeks. We went to Paris. I asked for a weekend off and went to Paris and the Eiffel Tower and a romantic Australian. Got down on one knee. She says, you back all right, love? She thought I was going down. And, so there's another setback. So you see the glamorous of the footballers, and mate, we never got massage. We used to say, have a rub. You'd yell out, who's got the oil? French and the physio go, the Arabs. That was his comeback. So you go to get a massage in the bank, go, get off your soft bugger. You don't have a rub. If you're injured, you'd be lucky. You wouldn't get, not now. The guys have got treatment and everything, ice baths, and not being funny, it was not bad days. We'd have a beer on the way home. So injuries was for myself, especially because of the physicality how I played. I'd like to put my hand on my heart and say I wasn't a dirty player. Physical, yeah. And it's funny because I've been asked these questions sometimes about, how would you describe yourself? I would want to take the ball and then kill the player. But you wouldn't want to kill the player to injure him out of career. That makes sense. You just want mate, next time you win that ball, where is he? So it's a psychology part of the game. Where is that big fella? Is he going to kick me? Is he going to hold me? He couldn't kick him anyway. Physicality of the ball. So, but what happened was Andy Ritchie took over from Neil Warnock who we had, and then he said, listen, mate, we can't afford your wages at Oldham. He said, Ian Atkins with Gary Williams said, listen, that goes Northampton Town were at Wembley the year before trying to get the first division. So, you know what? Time to move. I ended up going to Northampton Town, and I only played 10 games for Northampton Town. Played against one of probably the best games I scored on my debut. Scored against, first goal I scored in England was past Schwarzer. Stuck one past old Schwarzer at Bradford, Boxing Day. Well, I remind him when I see him too. It's all right, mate. Keep them chins up. It's all right, buddy. The Bradford Boxing Day, and they'll score the following Boxing Day. Millwall scored a few. Anyway, scored against Bournemouth. Played against Tottenham, another big game, FA Cup. Sol Campbell and the rest of them were playing, had another great game. And I look back, before I get on to the injury that finished my career, Sash, was the big games I played and done well. Mm-hmm. The Arsenal, the Villas, the Tottenhams. I played against someone, Ginola, played against, Sol Campbell, done well. Held my own. The thing that I would have liked to have known is could I have done it week in, week out? And obviously you'll live with that of the unknown because you'll never know because the career was taken away. People talk about Australia. We'll go back to this, make sure the Australian not representing my country. Mm. I'm not saying, and I won't sit here and say that I should have represented my country, but I should have been given the opportunity to represent. It's a very sad, and you talk about we're going to go down a sad area of my career here. These are the parts that you hold in anger. You know what I mean? And you go, they had a camp in England. I was the highest ranked centre half in the world. I was playing at Sheffield United, was sitting second off top, played 14 games straight, one player of the month. So that's been doing okay and didn't get invited to the camp. And I would have been happy to get invited to the camp.
Okay.
Because then would have showed me yes or no, was I good enough or was I not? There's another thing, it's the unknown. Could I have done it? Were you good enough to play? We know the expert, but you know the brown paper bags that were floating around. Certain things that that's what it is. But when it's your part of it, there's setbacks. There's a bit of taste in your mouth. Like I say, hand on heart, I'm not saying I should have the opportunity. The following camp was in Scotland, player of the month for the whole of second division. Didn't get a. As long as I got an opportunity for kids. Opportunity for in any sport, and you've got to have a bit of luck, right place, right time, and people like Dave Bassett seen something that he liked, Gary Cole seen something that I liked, maybe Australian coach did, Howard Kendall seen something that I liked, Neil Warnock seen something that I liked, so that's about something.
Yeah, it's interesting that you didn't get even selected, just even an extra man in the camp. It's like almost come down, and even if they tell you at the door, listen, you're here for the first half of the camp. If it doesn't work out, we'll send you on your way, and you at least right? But not to get called, you're there. You know what I mean? There. So you jump in a taxi and go to the camp. So that's interesting times. Football's about opinions, right? So, we know we both coach young kids now, and like one coach will select you in a squad, and another coach will cut you, right? And these moments are the ups and downs of a footballer that can psychologically play with you, right? So but what I wanted to get at is, you had. We'll circle back, but I want to get, because I think it's an important discussion that you were cut probably at the height of your career. You could play many more years, right? Other people are cut before they get their shot, right? So they'll never will be, right? So
it's a question mark, and they never know.
Question mark, right? Yeah. So I had a similar, in the transparency of sharing. I was never good enough to play at the level you played at, but at 17 I did my first knee. So you're like, okay, what does that year out take to your coming back from the game or not? So at the height of your career, when bang, it's all taken away from you, and you've talked about this. what are the psychological what's the psychological turmoil that that you faced?
I'll give you the honest truth. Pretty damn tough, mate. Pretty damn tough. I was a raw kid that left Australia. And Dougie Hodgson, at 29 years old, could play soccer. I'd learned my trade, Sasha. I'd learned my trade. And I'm a fighter. I want to be better. And I'll be honest with you, mate, it would have, a lot of people, and the people have said, how did Dougie Hodgson get to England? We talk about opinions. I'll tell you how I got there, because I wanted it. And I listened, and I learnt, and I absorbed. And I've done everything my coaches taught me. Gary Cole had a massive aspect in my career. I had some bad times that year, first year at Heidelberg with the law and bits and pieces, and Gaz supported me and we went through it and he got me through it, and my father. The setbacks as a kid, it's a tunnel. It's a very dark tunnel. Mm-hmm. Now, you'll go 29 years old. I was probably playing the best football of my career. And I look at you, Sash, and say, you know what, mate? I'd learnt my trade. And it was Doug's time to go and not be the centre-half, woof it up here and head it and boot, as we used to call it in England, bringing it down, playing the ball out from the back. Howard Kendall made that. He brought that out of me. That's what he wanted. So my career, and this is where I find it very, very hard to swallow, was just taken off. I'd done my apprentice, as they do kids now at the age of 16 to 3-year YTS in England. Your 3-year apprentice. I'd done my 3 years, mate. I'd worked my socks off. I'd learned. I'd been up and down. I'd played. I won best plays. Pardon me. Over the months, I fought through careers. I fought through changes in management. I wanted it. And the sad thing is, the day I hurt my neck, it was at training. I only played 10 games at Northampton Town. I went in as captain. Obviously going as the captain of the club, which is, going in as taking over. The captain has left. I was coming in as an honour, and where I could have went, where I could have gone. Tony Adams, he's one of the best. McGrath, you play to your 34, 35. And forget the financial side of things that, you can talk money. We'll put it this way, the most money I was ever on was in Northampton Town. So I kept going. Now, I know what the boys were on at Sheffield United when they were going back there to coach. Now, Neil Warnock would have took me, as he took me as reserve team manager after my career finished, would have took me back there as a player. He's that, and he has said previous, you're a better centre half than blah, 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 or blah, 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 that's in his opinion. So I headed the ball. We'd finished training, we'd done training, and I never forget it. We went in, and that guy goes, we had 3 new defenders. Dobbo had just came from West Brom. Back 4, he said, can we do a bit of back 4 work? And I had the shits, I'll be honest, I put my hand up. I said, mate, why couldn't we just done it while I was out there? Why did we come in to go back out? I used to strap my ankles up all session, so strap the ankles back out again. The ball came in, I just laid into this ball. Great header, by the way, Sasha. Great header. Centre-half paradise, height and distance. I've gone by that. Boy said, you're right. I went, nah. I said, just leave it. I said, I'll rub my neck. Ball came down, and I never headed a ball again that session. And I'm probably very lucky I didn't. Because if I had it, I probably would have ended up being in a wheelchair. So what had happened, the disc had exploded. You probably can't see by my hands. There's a line that comes across. It's spinal damage. So the disc exploded, hit my spinal cord, and bounced back. So it was November 23rd, and I went up, and I had to go to the dentist because I was at Oldham. So I went back up to Oldham, stayed at a mate's place. I was going, and then I was meeting my wife at Liverpool. Kath was involved, obviously, with Nike and Mizuno. Her background as marketing manager for Nike. all the players that wore the boots, like your shoot magazine, your match magazine, that's all her work. Ian Wright was one of her players. Jamie Redknapp was in it. Don Hull, name dropping now. Jamie was at our wedding. Good mate of mine, still is. Don Hutchinson. They all do commentary in England. And basically, I was meeting her at Liverpool. Basically, that day, and I rang her. I said, "Listen, I'm not going. I'm going straight down." I rang the physio, and he said to me, "You're right." I said, "No." I said, "I'm struggling here." He said, "Go straight to the hospital." So straight down the M6, M1, straight into Northampton and hospital. And they put a neck brace on me, stuck a heap of drugs into me, and basically, mate, I never played again, ever. But the other funny story is there was hope at one stage that I made. My car accident in 1984 was the 1st of December. I had an MRI scan, and I got my results. And have a guess what day it was? 1st of December. I read it, and it said prolapse disc, blah, 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 blah. And I'll tell you now, Sasha, I cried most of my way down the M1. I knew it was touch and go if I'd ever play again. And to the day, I didn't. I had still 2 years to go on my contract. They tried to Northampton Town tried to sack me. You talk about stress and bits and pieces. I had insurance. Obviously, every player's insured, just so you know. Obviously, they're probably £5,000. That's what clubs do. You can have your own insurance. I had it in there. They didn't take it out. So then I had a bum fight to get my insurance money, which I'll tell you straight out was a year's wage. So it wasn't here. Well, it was here or there, but it was a year's wage. And the PFA, which is the union over in England, obviously put an injunction on Northampton Town. So they couldn't sell, loan, do nothing until they paid me. And I'll be honest with you, mate, it took me 3 years to get my money out of the club. You know, so they let me go, and then the last year, and my contract I waived, and they paid me up, and it was a bum fight. It really, really was. It was a bum fight. So that part of my career, I ended up Northampton Town. I coached under 15s in Northampton Town. I'd done the youth team at Northampton Town, and then I ended up on my UEFA badges, and then to become the first Australian to coach professional in the UK. I coached reserve team manager at Sheffield United. You know, the Jackie Elkers was playing there. Montgomery from up in Newcastle, the Mariners. I coached him when he was younger. So, but and I'll elaborate over it for you, Sash, because it's probably something people need, not about me, but it's about the game and people as well. Sport affects different people in different ways. So, you know, you talk about depression, you talk about anxiety, you talk about mental illness. You know what I mean? I can sit here and write you a book about it all. You want to talk about tunnel, I talk about suicide. You know, think about thoughts of you don't want to go there. I've crossed the bridges of all of them. They say losing a career is like losing someone. That's how they put it to being a, you know, and even to the day, you look around and, you know, I've got my bar at the back here, and this is only put it in the last 2 years. You look around, you would know that I was a professional footballer in my house. It's all in the loft. It's all in there, in the shirts and memories. And I'll be honest, it was when I left England, reserve team manager, Neil Warnock said to me, my dad wasn't well. And he said to me, he actually said, mate, you know, you will be the next Sheffield United's manager. I was the youngest reserve team manager in England at the stage at that time. And I left, I walked away at 2.5 years of my contract at Sheffield as a coach. I'd done a year and a bit of it, and I walked away. And 2 reasons I walked away. One, my dad wasn't too well. It was a good reason to get back. If you really want to know the truth, couldn't handle it. That was the truth. Yeah, I'll use that as the bendy arm, as the excuse, as you do. But soccer or football, you want to call in England, was in my face every part of the day.
Yeah, okay.
And I basically couldn't handle it. And even to now, like, it's funny, you know, because it's just in us. Football's in us. You know what I mean? I've coached at Heidelberg, I've coached at Richmond, I've coached at Preston, I've done the MPLs, been with Chris Taylor, done the assistant Vic job, I've done the youth, the kids in New South Wales, bits and pieces, but it's kept me in the loop. You know what I mean? So, and the only reason it's kept me in the loop is because I feel guilty of my knowledge. I'm not sharing that with people. And I'll sit here and, I can coach. There's no drama about that. But I have knowledge. We have experience. And not to share that with a game has been so painfully, there's also graciously to me. So there's aspects, there's positives, the good old extrovert Dougie Hodgson, always loud and always smiling. There's an underlining in there, mate. And I'm happy to say that because people out there, not about me, but there'll be other people, and people don't realise that mine might be at that level, but the principles are still the same at any level.
Yeah, I think this is you're talking about mid-late 90s. It's something that you couldn't talk about, especially if you're one of the lads.
Oh,
and
sure.
You're as an 18-year-old, you're bouncing at the door. You can't talk about mental health, right? No. Anxiety, depression, any of those things. You just can't, and you didn't, right? You just got on with it. But I think today we're in a more modern state, and there is that psychological barrier because football's technical, tactical, physical, right? Yeah. But there's also emotional and psychological, and this is where we need to develop the players, because I think we're in a state of a game of football at the moment that are we tactical enough? Probably, right? Are we technical enough? Probably. Are we resilient enough? Emotional strength? This is where we need to help our young ones come along.
Coming through.
And being able to talk about, this conversation, being able to talk about and experience the highs, okay, of playing at a top level in front of many thousands of people, and the lows of not being able to do that, right, gives you that breadth of experience. And so I credit to you that you're still giving back to the game, because what that means is I really think it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. First you need your food, then your shelter, and then community. But the very height of that is the self-actualization of giving back, right? And I think that sort of brings it full circle in a really, really nice way. To help others, right? And getting pleasure out of seeing the benefit of others.
I think that's probably the person I am. If that makes sense, mate, that's the person I am. I like to see a smile on people's faces. I like to see people happy. I like to see people down. But the game has changed. The game has changed. It's changed for the better. Has it changed for the worse? And I'm tipping, and I'll say this, Sash, my generation, I reckon the boys before that would have said, I wish we had what they had. And I reckon we're going, I wish we had what they had. Will that continue? Wish we had what they had. Basically, let's be fair now, that what the players have there, their limits and what they've got their hands on and what their capability of now is just, the biomechanics and all the rest of it. Mate, well, like I said, the dog was on the physio bench before us blokes getting an ultrasound. But mental strength.
But the thing is, the one thing that the kids of today don't have, is they don't have unorganized sport, right? And so the thing that we had in our generation, we went out there in the park and played 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, 5v5. Yep. You'd even up the games. Whoever had the ball was the king, right? Today, kids, you go past soccer grounds and, there's hardly anyone there. So, there's things that are missing in each generation, right? So it's an evolution. So I want to ask you, if you look back, you've got your bar behind you. Obviously, playing for Sheffield United is a big honour, right? And so, if you think back, if there was a moment, right, that you could think about playing for Sheffield United, what was the if you think back at the time now, Doug Hodgson, early 50s, thinking back to that Doug Hodgson, half the age, you're 25, 26, 27 in that vintage. Where was that moment? If you could just relive again, what would that moment be?
I reckon I've done. I reckon even though I'd done it pretty good, I could have done it better.
Okay.
And that is everywhere. I could have trained harder. I could have probably done a little bit more, even though, like I said, I was dedicated. I like to play. Don't get me wrong, there's a time to play. I would go 6 weeks and not have a drink. Midweek, you don't drink. Saturday night, you finish, you're at home, you might have a Chinese takeaway. When I was with my wife, obviously, we'll have a couple of glasses of red if you're lucky, or one glass, or none at all. So the alcohol wasn't there, but just even your fuel. So I use the word eat to win. And I use that with, and you talk about the 1%ers. Now, this is when I talk to kids about the difference between, if you want to put it in footy terms, there's the tap out the ball, and there's the bloke tapping it in, you've just got that. That's an inch. Did I have my jack of potatoes last night? Did that give me enough to get up and win that header? Because now we're talking minimals now. We're talking minimal, 1%ers, 2%ers, explosiveness. You're talking quick feet. They've got it all these days, and you look back and could I have done that better? Yeah. Could I have eaten even better? I was quite fit. I was strong. But I reckon I could have been quicker and I could have been stronger. And I reckon I could have eaten better. So these are, and I reckon if you put all that together, Sash, I reckon there's another 5 or 10% in me. To go even more again. You know what I mean? Did I leave anything unturned? No, I didn't. I left nothing on the park. Anyone who knows me, I wore my heart on the sleeve, and didn't matter what club. And I'm been lucky that most clubs I've been to, I go back to Sheffield United and they get me on the pitch. Why is Sheffield United such a big in my heart? Because that's where I started and that's where I finished. The journey on the way, there's Pines, there's Dufton, there's Heidelberg, Sheffield. That's my England tour. And then checked out of England, reserve team manager, to come home. So that's why the Uniteds, there and there. The Oldens been there, they got the Burnleys in there, you got the Plymouths. But the most happiest moment, and I'll never forget this, and I said this at my father's funeral, bless him, was that was the president of the FFE as well. He was in the FFA. And I'll tell you only, I got bagged to the shit out as a kid. You're only playing soccer because you're dad, you're only good enough to do that. Well, you know what? There's that one. Get that in here. You know what I mean? And I wore that. I had that. So maybe that's what made me more resilient and go and prove people wrong. You know what I mean? Maybe that was where it came from, just to shove it where the sun don't shine, to show people, you know what? I am good enough and I was good enough, and this is why I did it. Well, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter now. I did it. So I played a couple hundred games in England, so it doesn't really matter. Did I get to where I wanted to go? Would have been an honour to represent my country. I really, really would have, So my dad rings Howard Kendall unto me to know. Sheffield United's playing Birmingham. They're ringing the old man, said, any chance I can come on the team, coach? I'm going to surprise my son in. Howard Kendall being Howard Kendall's done the right thing. He said, because of insurances, you can't come down. I think we drove, I'm not too sure if we drove down or we stayed in the overnight. So some games, depending on the traffic, overnight, police escort, straight to the ground. That's how it worked in England. So they see coppers in front of you and through you go. So I think I got 22 tickets for that game. That's my first game my father ever watched me play. Gary Ablett, not the Aussie rules Gary Ablett, the Evertonian Gary Ablett, great player. Another one that passed away, rest his soul. He's making his debut for Sheffield United on loan from Everton to Sheffield United. 22 tickets. I've gone out there. I've had a cracker. I've had an absolute blinder. We've won 1-0 against Birmingham. full house. I think Birmingham holds about 28, 30 grand, 30,000 people. Came off the park into the they used to have players' bars. So no one could get in there, your girlfriends or wives or family. You needed tickets to get in the players' entrance. Anyway, Howard Kendall came home and said, all right, Gaffer. Yeah, he said, where's your dad? I said, hang on, I'll go get him. I said, Dad. I said, John, this is Howard, John. And he turned around, he said, how are you getting back to Sheffield? He said, I've got the family. He said, come on the bus. And I'll never forget it, mate. There's me sitting on the back of the bus with my dad, because we used to have lasagnas, microwaves then, obviously in the team cage. So you'd go back, you'd have your beer, your water. Me and Neil Warnock, he used to say to me, you got your bottle of red? So if we were playing for 3-4 hours, well, I'd stick a bottle of red in my bag, and me and the gaffer would have a red wine on the way home. So anyway, turn around this day, we're having lasagna, TV's on, lasagna, Scorpion beer with my father on the way back to Sheffield United. And that's, you look back and you go, that's a pretty special moment. Special moment, mate. But you couldn't do that now. You know what I mean? But that was the type of person Howard Kendall was. The kick, we called him. He was the youngest player ever to play in the FA Cup in the 60s. He was a guru, Evertonian legend. Won a lot of stuff for Everton, and that's a memory that stuck with me. And I said that was my dad. He came back, and they reckon. And that's the emotional side of the Hodgson, I suppose. The game started, Sasha, and he walked away. They reckon he was crying his eyes out.
Nice. That's so nice.
All dads are proud of the kids and the girls, of course.
Yes, of course. The proud father. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So tell us, Dougie, you're now speaking to that 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old boy or girl. And they're asking you for advice. What pearl of wisdom can you give them?
Make sure you give the boss a stubby on a Tuesday night. You know what, mate? When I'll say this, when I've done a couple of guest speaking, make sure you can look in the mirror and make sure you've left nothing unturned. Don't be the one to think back in life and give me what if or what could. Because the only person you're cheating is yourself. And that is true facts. And that comes to anything in life. That's the moral of Dougie Hodgson. That's the way I work. I've got 4 businesses, 80 staff. Today's another day. Because tomorrow we might not be here. So what do you want out of life? What do you want out of your football? How far do you want to go? What do you want to achieve? What's your ambition? What's your goal? Where do you want to go? And if you can look in the mirror at the end of that training session or the end of that day, and you know that you've given it 100%, I believe in life you've done the best you can. So,
fantastic words of wisdom. Dougie Hodgson, thank you so much for your contribution to Australian football, and we thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Sash. I think we've done it right today. We didn't get too many stories out, and I didn't know no swearing, which was good. We've gone down the professional ones.
Good stuff, mate.
Thanks, Sash. All the best, pal. Love your work, mate.
Hey, guys. We've come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our wonderful guest. If you like this type of content and would like to see more, how about you hit the like and subscribe button? And have a fantastic day.